Welcome, everybody, to the Self Improvement Podcast. We are here to discuss self help principles with you to help you find more joy and success as a young adolescent. My name is Ian.
My name is Dalton.
Joined with Dalton. Dalton is super excited. I am super excited. Back with another leadership episode. And today, the focus is being able to incorporate leadership into relationships. Right, Dalton?
Yeah, so relationships is a big part of leadership. Really, teams are built on relationships. Without good relationships with the people in your team, there is no team. You're just a random group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and a team comes in many forms. It doesn't have to be at work. Even if you have a loved one and you live with them or you see them every now and then, you guys are kind of in a team, right? Because you're two different beings with different ideas for how things should work. But it's about having a leadership perspective in the way that you're communicating and in the way that you negotiate things. And the first point I'd like to start with is why relationships are important. It may be self-explanatory, but the reason we included this in today's episode is because it's always good to know your why. The way I look at it, in terms of relationships, you can't get anywhere in life without knowing how to build and maintain good relationships in business, in your personal life, with your family and friends. I feel like it's crucial for your well-being and happiness. And with that, it also builds you up as a person. It's funny because every time I speak with my best friend Dalton, which is our co-host here, I always realize something within myself or about other people. And so having a friendship with him, I almost said relationship, but that would mean something else. So having this kind of friendship where we meet regularly, we discuss goals, we point things out to help each other in our personal growth journeys, that has been really valuable. Really, really valuable. It's priceless.
yeah, so relationships are really essential to success. When you have a good relationship, you're able to have influence over that person. Obviously, it's for the greater good, because you're not going to have a good relationship with somebody who wants to manipulate you. When you have good relationships, communication is more clear and effective. And this is really important in businesses, especially because having good relationships with your boss and your peers and your subordinates is going to allow your company to make money, for the people in the company to succeed in life, and for you to be able to support yourself and your family. And that's just one perspective. And so when you have good relationships with people, you have people that you can rely on, and people that are going to help you through certain problems that you have in your life. And it's nice to have that. Even leaders need it. Some direction and help from others.
Yeah, because one important trait of a leader is humility, which we discussed previously, but I would like to bring that up again.
Humility. Yeah. Having humility is important because when you think you're always right and you're imposing your will on others, you're going to form antagonistic relationships. when you have humility as a leader, you realize that, well, you're not always right, and that some people have ideas that you can implement that can better the success of you and your team.
Yeah. And one big intention I've set for myself over the past month, and even longer, I would say, is being present, because it improves both my relationships and my leadership ability. So being present, that was a plane that I spotted because I was present. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. But that's what being present is, in a sense, is being in tune with your surroundings and your feelings, most importantly, but also other people's feelings. So, for example, let's say you watch a video on how to approach and connect with girls. Now, that's going to add a bunch of theory in your mind. You're going to be like, okay, I got to do step A, B, and C. And that's helpful, right? But then when you go out and you try to talk to people, you can't be thinking about those things you got to do 100% of the time, because you have to tune in to other people's body language, your body language, which is huge, and the kind of responses you're getting, and then being able to make decisions off of that. But when you're wrapped up in your head about, okay, did I miss this step? Was that good enough? Should I do it again? Then you're not being present. So it's just tuning into people and yourself. Another thing also, and this came up today for me, was that when we were in the coffee shop planning things out, I felt like I was assuming the lead too much and not listening enough. And I'm glad that happened, because now we can talk about it, and that can be a lesson for me and for everyone, which is to be present. So if I were more present when we were at the coffee shop, I felt like I would have been more open to listening, because I'm naturally more curious when I'm tuned in to how people are feeling and how I'm feeling and the overall vibe of the conversation.
And that's the thing about establishing relationships, is you need to listen to what other people are saying. Actually listen to them.
You want to feel other people too. Not literally. Don't touch people without their permission. But yeah, you want to be aware of that. That's emotional intelligence. Nobody's perfect at it. Still working at it. I'm better than some people. Not in an egoic way. But I also need to improve. I had this other point I wanted to discuss. Let me see. I'm almost lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. Oh yeah. So, allowing ownership, which is basically what we're talking about. So in business, I feel like this is a really good example. In business, if you're helping someone achieve a certain result, and you're doing that kind of work, kind of like me, it's important to allow the other person to own what they have to do to achieve the results. So a good leader has this approach of a coach almost. So instead of telling people what to do, you want to help them shift their thinking through really good questions, so that when they answer those questions, they know what to do. Obviously, you give them some tips, but inspiring people.
That's kind of like decentralized command.
Decentralized command.
You don't want to micromanage your team to the point where they're always looking up at you and trying to ask you questions on how to do things, to a point where when you're not around that they don't get anything done. You want to be able to empower your team to lead themselves. And to do that, you have to trust your team, and that's something that's very essential for building a relationship, is instilling trust in one another. And to instill trust depends on who you're trying to instill trust in. It's relatively all the same. Honesty is a big part of it. Being honest to other people and even to yourself. So in the case where you're trying to develop trust with your boss, the best way to do that is through performance. If your boss asks you to do a task, you do it into the best of your ability. If his plan isn't the greatest, you still go with it, even if you're not in 100% agreement with it. Because what you're doing is you're building that leadership capital. You're building that trust that your boss has in you. And then when your boss does come up with a plan that isn't ideal, and you do speak up about it, he's actually going to listen to you. Because all the other times he sees, oh, this guy is a go-getter, he gets the job done. And if he's bringing up a question now or providing some pushback, then it must be reasonable.
Because there's the trust element. You're trusted. You've demonstrated that you're a good follower. And if you can do that, you earn the position of leadership.
Yes. To be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And you have to listen.
It all ties in pretty well together.
It does.
It's amazing.
And now at the other end is establishing relationships with your subordinates, people under you in the chain of command. And to do that, well, obviously we have to instill trust. So how do you get your subordinates to trust you as their leader? Well, you have to give your subordinates trust. And so that could be letting them make a decision and a task, maybe a podcast, and not making it such a detrimental circumstance. So if they make the wrong decision, it's easily fixable. And as they continue to be successful in their decision making and their task completion, you can start to give them more responsibility and more trust. And as you give them more responsibility and more trust, they start to trust you more because they see that you're enabling them to grow and giving them opportunities and the resources to win.
Yeah.
One more thing. If your subordinate does fail at a task or does make a wrong decision, you don't need to drop the hammer on them. That's not going to help you. Instead, use that failure, that mistake, as a teaching opportunity, as an opportunity to mentor them and to coach them. And then once they get over that bump and they go on to their next task, maybe help them out a little bit. And eventually build the trust enough to where you have a solid relationship and you're pretty much all hands off. And if you have to make any, big decisions, or he has to make any big decisions, to be able to give that help and correction when needed.
And I feel like also part of trust is not only honesty, but having a mutual goal. So the reason I feel like our friendship here, Dalton and I, works in our favor, it's mutually beneficial, is because we have pretty similar goals. We're going in a similar direction with similar intentions.
So let's spell that out, right? What are our goals? Well, they're not the same. Our goals are not the same. However, we're both trying to improve ourselves, and we both want to help each other improve. And that's the biggest part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Is that we want the other person to succeed. And the other person wants us to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, when you said that, it made me think, like, what would it be like if if we didn't even know about each other's goals and we only hung out to kill time? I feel like we would hang out less often, like maybe once every month or 2 months.
And I don't think we would grow as much as people.
Yeah, because there is no mutual goal at that point. It's just, it has less meaning. But we're so pretty much bought into the idea of self-growth that there's a lot of potential to be realized.
And something Ian brought up earlier was, finding the right people to lead. And we had a little bit of a challenge of incorporating that into the relationship part of this. But now I think I understand how it works. Because you are the 5 closest people that you spend your time with. So when you spend your time with people that aren't trying to achieve goals, like if you're spending your time with people that are doing drugs and smoking weed and have no ambitions, you're going to be that person. You're not going to have ambitions and you're going to probably do drugs. If you're spending time with people who want to help the community, want to grow, want to learn, then that's going to be your status too. So finding the right people to hang around, I guess, isn't complete leadership.
It changes your standards, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
It changes the lens that you look through. Yeah, I mean, and those people are going to have certain goals, and then that kind of rubs off on you, and you start to have similar ambitions. It's just a matter of finding something positive that is constructive. Like, think about it this way. Look around you, and what kind of people do you want to avoid becoming? Like, what type of person you not want to become? And then if that's someone that is close to you, you're going to have to create some distance. Now, find someone that you look up to.
What if they're your family, close relative?
Well, first of all, I think you shouldn't make it personal. And it shouldn't be so direct. It should be implicit, not explicit. And if they're that close, then you just focus on the other side of the coin, which is being with people that you want to adopt their habits and their thinking. Being around people that inspire you. Even if you can't get away from the ones that do the opposite, the least you can do is prioritize, those that actually help you elevate. And if you do that naturally, your time is going to be spent more with them, if that's your intention.
And if you do have a family member or a close friend, someone that you've been with and you have a very good connection with that you don't really want to leave behind, I'm not saying that you should leave, or Ian's not saying that you should just leave him behind. He's just saying that you should prioritize more of your time with the people that are going to activate your growth. And when you grow and you're around that person, they're going to have some influence to grow as well. Even if they're hanging around those drug dealers and those people with no ambitions. And you may want to bring them up with you. And to do that is not by telling them what they have to do, by being direct at them. You have to ask them earnest questions and build a relationship, because you're not going to influence your sibling or your close friend by developing an antagonistic relationship with them.
Yeah, and you shouldn't do that because you won't have any influence. People listen to people that they, number one, like and trust.
Mm-hmm.
So start there.
Yeah, so as a leader, that's what you need. You need to be able to be trusted and liked. And if you're going around barking orders at everybody and not doing the job that your boss asks you, then you're not going to be able to lead effectively and your team's not going to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff here. And we want to summarize everything for you guys, um, and leave you off with like one intention. So, talked about why relationships are important and how they can help you feel more fulfilled, but also make more money and have more influence. And then we talked about allowing people to have ownership for over their results, basically.
How that helps build trust.
Yeah.
You let people take control of something and not
Try to control it yourself.
Yep.
It shows that you trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, that's what you're gonna get in return.
Yep.
Trust goes both ways. I love that playing, guys. I don't know. Anyways. And then we talked about the 3 pillars: honesty, having a mutual goal, and then dropping your ego. Being, humble enough to not want to control everything. And it all ties in pretty well together.
Yeah, and if you're not honest, you're not going to have trust. You're not going to be able to build a relationship. No one's going to trust someone who's lying all the time. Having a mutual goal helps you strive for whatever you're looking for, and you get relatability, which also helps build a relationship, because having relatability with someone allows for influence. And lastly, subordinating your ego or eliminating your ego, and allows you to let other people take ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And like, let's say your boss gives you a task that you could do better a different way, or you could delegate it better. You need to look at it and say, well, what will I be gaining if I do impose my will on my boss or my subordinates, and say, how much of this is actually ego, and how much of this can I actually sacrifice and just do my job and let these people take ownership.
I feel like that's the deepest you could go, is like at the ego level, at the very deepest level. If you can address that and keep yourself reminded of it, and that it's something that you have to deal with and be aware of, then it'll make all the other lessons, it'll make it easier once you start to master the ego, which is a huge undertaking. It's a lifetime's project to do that. Seriously.
Yeah, so that about does it for today's episode. Thank you guys for coming along. Ian, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, man, I think this was really good. And yeah, I just want to leave you guys with this idea of the ego, that's the source of all leadership problems, relationship problems, anything, really. So that being said,
thank you guys for checking out the podcast, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.